And ultimately, what happens in the end is she didn't give him all of her assets, but she made him in charge of everything.
He was the executor, right?
Pretty much, he's the
Yep.
executor. But she compensated him for it, but she didn't give away all of her assets.
Yep.
She gave her assets to different charities, transferred certain sums and certain real properties to different kinds of trusts. So in this situation, it wasn't the kind where, oh, one person is in charge of everything and receives everything. But
Right.
she certainly gave him a lot of power. And this is, from the beginning, we were talking about somebody who really possibly didn't have a lot of education, from what I understand, and just really knew how to take care of her, but wasn't really sophisticated as to the different type of assets that she had and how to handle them. But somehow he found his way into her good graces, and now he was in charge. And in the end, you see him, talking to the various financial advisors, lawyers, all those people in Doris's life.
Like all of a sudden he gets elevated.
Yes.
If you look at his background, wouldn't have said that he should have been in that position.
Mhm.
But it was all based on trust and familiarity.
Yes.
Right? Because she just really knew him. I mean,
Yeah.
I have to say that what struck me, Chris, that this was some of a true story. I really didn't
Yes.
know Doris Duke. I didn't know about her. I didn't know that. And I had to look her up. So she's this American billionaire tobacco heiress,
Mhm.
philanthropist, art collector, definitely the horticulturist. We saw that, how she was trying to teach him about orchids and things like that, and socialite. And really the richest girl in the world. I mean, really, to be known that way. So it was really amazing to me. I was like, oh, okay, I didn't even know about her and how he made her way in his life. And, I think he did serve a purpose, honestly.
Absolutely.
He filled that void in her life, whether it was emotional and things like that. But
Mhm.
he did work. He worked.
Yes,
He
did. Right, exactly. And so many people, might look at, and there were certain people who contested the will. Not quite sure the details of those particular, what happened to those contests, but eventually it really, it held up. The will was perfectly fine, but it all became moot after he passed away 3 years later. So somebody else had to, be appointed in his stead, probably, to take over what he was doing. So, things like this, do they happen in real life? Yeah, absolutely. How do you avoid something like this? I mean, Chris, we have clients who are, not necessarily clients, but we've heard situations of, people unduly influencing somebody to make certain decisions that they would not have done otherwise.
100%. And what's interesting, California has a law that caregivers or people in a position of that kind of trust are not allowed to be a beneficiary of someone's estate. That's in California. And New Jersey, just recently, there is a bill pending by Senator Bob Singer, and he's sponsoring legislation that requires that people who are not relatives of a senior, they have to prove that there was no undue influence that existed if they're named the beneficiary of a will. So the burden is on that caregiver to show that, hey, this was done freely, voluntarily. This was, something that they wanted to do. I didn't force them. I wasn't coercing them. So that's hasn't been passed yet, but that's going to be interesting. So that'll be a protection, right, in case a certain situation comes through. Mm-hmm.